Have you ever been stuck in that awkward silence with a client, whether it's in an elevator going up to a showing, or it's going into a listing presentation and you just met them, or maybe you're driving them to a showing in your car and you're trying to figure out what to say? Today, I'm going to show you a simple 3-step framework so that you never run out of things to say and that you always come across and appear confident and not salesy. My name is Emma Pace. I've been a top producing agent for the last 10 years, and I built my business to 7 figures by coming up with systems and structures for sales and marketing. And now I run an agency that installs these systems in the businesses for other agents. When I first started, I used to panic in those silences because I thought that what made me look confident was that awkward kind of small talk and just always filling the space. And then what I realized that I needed to do was fill the space with the right questions so that I could get enough meaningful conversation to, 1, build a relationship, and 2, to help me through the sales process. And that's exactly what I'm going to share with you today. So if you've ever struggled with this, then let's dive in. Most awkward silences start because we're asking the wrong types of questions. And those questions are usually what are referred to as close-ended questions. And the problem with close-ended questions is that the answers that the other person you're in the conversation with, the types of answers that they can give you are just yes or no. And what happens is when someone gives you a yes or no answer, unless they naturally want to continue the conversation just dies at that point. And then you are responsible for coming up with another question to try and continue the conversation. And so most close-ended questions start with do, is, will, or are. So that would sound like, do you like this neighborhood? Yes or no. Is this your first time here? Yes or no. Are you ready to sell? Yes or no. Those are some examples of how you can see what close-ended questions will start with. So what we want to do is, instead of starting with close-ended questions, because we know that we're going to get a yes or no answer as the output, we want to start with what are called open-ended questions. And when you start your questions with these open-ended starting phrases, which I'll show you in a second, the prospect or the other person that you're having a conversation with, just naturally, if you're at a networking event or something like that, they have to carry on the conversation because they can't say yes or no, or it would be very awkward. So instead of starting with do, is, will, or are with your questions, we want to start with what, how, when, or tell me about. Okay. So some examples in real estate and what they would look like is, so what do you like most about your neighborhood versus do you like your neighborhood? Do you like your neighborhood is yes or no. What do you like most about your neighborhood isn't something that somebody can respond yes or no to. They have to respond with something that is a little bit more elaborate with that. So an example would be, oh, I really like the restaurants in the neighborhood. Oh, amazing. Yeah, I've always heard great things about the restaurant in this neighborhood. What's your favorite restaurant? And now we continue carrying the conversation so that it's not awkward with more open-ended questions without trying to feel like we're interrogating them, right? We want it to feel like a natural flow. So like I said, the types of questions that you want to ask, or the way that you're going to start these questions, instead of do, is, will, or are, we don't start questions with those words because then we'll get a yes or no answer. We're going to start with when, how, what, or tell me about, or what, how, when, and tell me about. So tell me a little bit about why you guys decided to purchase this place in the first place. Tell me a little bit about the types of homes that you've been searching for online as of now. What brought you here? Like, what brought you into thinking about this particular neighborhood? How did you decide that this was going to be the right time to move, right? All of those questions are the types of questions that someone can't say yes or no to. And it gives you a little bit of time to hear their responses and hear their answers. And then if you want to continue the conversation from there, you ask another question that starts with an open-ended phrase. Like I said, what, how, when, or tell me about. And if you start your questions with that, you'll just naturally continue on and carry on the cadence. Now, sometimes you're like, all right, what happens with the people that are just naturally not talkers, right? Like I'll even ask them when or what do you like about your neighborhood? And they just say, I don't know. I like everything about my neighborhood. Well, sometimes we need to probe a little bit further because not everybody is a natural conversationalist. So the easiest way to do this is step 1 by just changing close-ended questions into open-ended questions. So changing the starting word of your question will change the way that somebody responds to that question. That's going to be the easiest thing to do to get your results as of today. But sometimes we do have people that we're conversing with that aren't necessarily still giving us a ton of information. So you're going to say, all right, I did step one and I'm in a conversation with someone and I'm still getting like relatively short answers, or maybe they're like closed off. And so sometimes we need to do a little bit of probing to get them to open up a little bit more or get some more ammo so that we can kind of continue the conversation and build that rapport. And so that's when you would go to step two, is if you're not really getting the answer that you're looking for through the open-ended questions, we're going to go to step two, which is to give people a very easy choice to select. So I call this like poll questions. If you think about like an Instagram poll, you give people options to answer. So examples in real estate. So like when you're choosing your home, what would matter most to you? Space, location, or the style of the home? Right? And so now they go, oh, the location. Oh, amazing. That's interesting to hear. Why the style of the home, or why the location of the home, right? And so, like, when you picture yourself in your next place, do you see more open concept? Do you see something that's more cozy and traditional? Or is it something that's like more modern, right? Oh, I want something more modern. Oh, amazing. Tell me a little bit about why you want something that's more modern. Oh, we live in a place right now and it's extremely dated and it's one of the things that we don't necessarily like, blah, blah, blah. So now we can continue on the conversation, right? So if you're struggling to get somebody to answer and carry the conversation in a sales conversation, or this could be like a networking event or even just a party, you can always give them, choice select. So an example, let's talk about like a party example, right? Right now we're in this awkward period of weather. All right. So it's still technically summer, but we're about to transition into the fall and our days are a little bit mixed. So if I was out, if I was out and I don't know anybody, all right, I've never met this person before, don't even know their name, and I want to have a conversation. Something that I could do is, from a poll perspective, is say, oh, wow, like this weather's been so back and forth. Some days it feels like fall and some days it feels like summer. Are you more of a fall person or are you more of a summer person? It's like, oh, I can't wait for the fall, cozy, sweater weather and pumpkin spice lattes or whatever happens to be. And now you're building that rapport. It's like, oh my gosh, I love fall too. These are all my favorite things about it, etc. What are some things that you usually do in the fall? Like, do you typically watch football or do you do X, Y, and Z? If you need to go with more poll-based questions, okay? So just to recap, we have close-ended questions that go to open-ended questions. And then we have, if we can't get someone to answer our open-ended questions, we give them a poll or a choice so that we can naturally carry on the conversation and ask another open-ended question after they make their selection. So finally, step three is if it's still feeling a little bit awkward, here's exactly how you build that rapport with somebody, and it's called a connecting phrase or a connection phrase. So instead of just saying like, do you like summer or fall? Do you like football or pumpkin spice lattes? What you can do is use a connection phrase before you ask the next question, where you say something about yourself to draw that connection with them and flip it back on them. So it makes you more relatable and it gives you something for them to react to. When you're walking through for a listing presentation, you could say, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this kitchen. I love to cook. I would love to live here and have this as my kitchen. What's your favorite part of the entire home, if you don't mind me asking? And they may say, oh, the kitchen is absolutely great, but we love the backyard because of X, Y, and Z, right? And so I've used the I love the kitchen because I love cooking as my connection phrase. And then I've carried that over to an open-ended question. What's your favorite part of the home? Okay. Or you can say, if you're in the midst of a conversation and, someone's actually a conversationalist, you could say, oh, in the fall, I love spending my time outdoors on the weekend. What's your usual favorite way to spend like a Saturday or when you're off work? Oh, I usually take my kids to do X, Y, and Z, right? And so these connection phrases at least lets the other party know a little bit about you and makes you feel a little bit more human. So it doesn't feel like an interrogation. It feels kind of like a two-way street. And at least that way you give them the opportunity to pick up on things. Like when you say, I love your kitchen, I'm a big cook. And they say, oh, we love cooking too, etc. What are your favorite restaurants that you go to? Or what are your favorite grocery stores that you usually go to, etc. if you guys are both foodies. So to recap everything that we talked about today, step one, you're going to stop asking close-ended questions. Do, is, will, or are. Stop starting your questions with that, we're going to go to open-ended questions, which is going to be when, how, where, or tell me more about that. You're going to start your questions with those words instead of the other ones. All right, so that's step one. Step two is if you're still not getting the response to the questions that you would like, then you can go into what I call the Instagram poll style questions, where you give them two options. So when you're looking at purchasing your next home, are you looking more for the location, or would you be looking more for the style of home? Would you be looking for this, or would you be looking for this? And then if you're still not getting what you're looking for, and or you feel like you're coming across as like interrogating them, or the conversation doesn't seem as genuine, then you're going to add a connection phrase on the front of it and say, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this kitchen. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love this neighborhood. My favorite restaurant is X. What's your favorite restaurant in the neighborhood? Right? So we're going to use a connection phrase, and then we're going to pair on an open-ended question on the end to try and build that rapport, let them know a little bit more about us, and then continue to build that groundwork and that framework where the conversation feels a little bit more natural. So if you do those three things in that order, I promise you can always come across as confident. You won't come across as salesy. You'll be able to build rapport much better. If you found any value in this, then like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.